Hi empaths, welcome back to more crystal readings. This week we have other types of materials. We have an abalone shell on the left. In the middle we do have a rough rhodochrosite. And on the right we have an Orthoceras fossil. So just notice which one captures your eye visually. What are you drawn to? Begin to connect visually. Feel energy flowing up from the heart center, out through the eyes, and into whichever piece speaks to you. The shell, the crystal, or the fossil. And then I'll connect to that item and see what energy I can read off of it. Your energy may spill over into more than one, so you might want to just watch the whole video. Or you may want to go to the timestamp in the comments or description to go right to your item. Let's get started. Hi to those of you that chose the abalone shell. So let's tune into your energy, see what's coming in. I'm getting sucked into a spiral here. Maybe a current. There's a spiral of energy here. That can be representative of a thought loop, right? Anxiety has a spiral to it, right? Sometimes we'll be guided if we're going through an anxious time. Find the spiral. Where is it, right? Where is it spiraling? Find the spin. It will have a spin to it. Spin is the word. Find the spin, right? Am I having anxiety here? Follow it. What's the spin? Can I bring it out of myself? Can I reverse it, right? And then bring it back in. Reversing it. Sometimes people find that works. Also, with the spiral, what's coming in is the tossing and turning of the abalone shell in the ocean, right? There's a tossing and turning that happens, and that's why the shell is so beautiful and polished. It's gone through this tossing and turning in the ocean. And there's something about you where you've gone through maybe intense highs and lows in life, maybe tossed and turned in tumultuous relationships, starting with maybe a parent relationship, right? Where there was some predicting that needed to happen. This is why you're so intuitive, right? Part of that intuition, part of that psychic nature is this adaptation, to be able to predict the emotional state of somebody else before they're even in touch with it, so that you can predict what you need to do to take care of yourself, to protect yourself in that situation, to keep yourself safe. So it is an adaptation. There's this learning curve of discerning peace and stillness and not allowing things in, right? Not allowing anything in. There's a meme like that on the internet where it's like, it keeps being recirculated about what's the message on it? It's dangerous to it's dangerous to find solitude or find peace in solitude, because then you're never going to want to go out and be with people again, or something like that, right? So, but your inner peace, this state of inner peace has come from true peace, right? When you find that true sense and you know it because you're able to come back to it. It's something you've been able to access. So you can always repeat it. If you access it once, you can come back to it and practice aligning to it, right? So this is something you have found inside. You can come back to it and have a practice, a peaceful practice of coming back to peace mindfully. When your mind wanders, right, as it does, when we're meditating, the mind wants to wander. As soon as we become mindful of that in our practice, we come back, right? And then we're able to cut down on the time that we do it, right? Because we're training ourselves. Much like that meditation practice, you can use that practice in any sort of spiritual process. So coming back to a state of inner peace, practice that. Mindfully come back, right? And I have a sense that you're already on to that because there's this idea of the abalone shell being tossed and turned in the ocean. And that is what creates this polish, right? And so that those ups and downs in life, that resistance that's created there, is like a training. It's like it trains you to find that state of inner peace inside, and that you have found success in that at times. That's being acknowledged here. But there's also times where people have sensed that peace and they wanted access to it, right? They wanted part of it. They wanted some for themselves because they didn't know how to create it for themselves. And there may have been part of you that unconsciously agreed to it because you didn't know, right? And so they came in and they created a storm for you internally. So now there's this idea of having boundaries that are not porous, right? Because porous boundaries aren't going to be effective, but maybe having a gate that can open and allow some people in through your discernment, right? Not just everybody gets access, and that's okay. Creating a state of inner peace is about not just managing your own energy, but a practice in peace is also noticing when somebody else is wanting to disrupt that peace and not allowing them to have access, right? Creating a boundary there, a firm boundary. Even if it's someone you love. Having a boundary doesn't mean I don't love you, right? Having a strong boundary doesn't mean I won't feel your love. Because if that's the case, that's not love, right? There's something to unpack here with regard to that, because we often have these unconscious rules in place that come from family system, right? If there's enmeshment in the family system, boundaries are betrayal, right? They can be felt as betrayal. So that makes a huge learning curve in learning how to not only have boundaries, but implement them and have a practice around them. But again, this is something you can practice. And you can even make it known to people that are close to you. I'm just working on getting better at my own boundaries so that I can show up better in my relationships. So I just want you to know that this isn't about you, right? So just learning to communicate and to embody that peace. so that you can carry it with you wherever you go, and trust yourself, right? Because sometimes what happens too is when we allow these harsh energies in, or when we can feel the pull of someone's agenda and we just allow it to happen, we start to lose trust for ourselves. Like, I allowed it to happen again. Look what I did. So the awareness here can really help put it into practice, right? And sort of looking back and acknowledging that there was a rule in place here that you were just following to belong to a system, a family system, most likely. And that when we acknowledge that and see the source of that, maybe a reason why that might be the case, to keep the family safe or together, or right, something that might have taken place in the family system in order to make that necessary, unburdening can happen. And then it becomes much less like this force of nature acting in our lives. It becomes conscious, and then we can practice a new way, right? It's not this force that keeps, if it remains unconscious and out of our awareness, out of our sphere of awareness, it will have this force in our lives. And if we can illuminate that, it can really free us up to make different choices, to see that the elements that were involved in that rule being put in place in the family system no longer applies, right? And we can move forward differently and still feel safe. It's still okay. We can trust ourselves, right? That we're still we still belong. We're still part of the system. But we are capable to adapt and shift and move forward. And acknowledge the fears, right? I once had, I mean, a lot's coming through. I once had a family constellation session, a personal session for myself, where I have enmeshment with, it's just something that shows up in my family system, right? So I had the facilitator create a circle for me, representing me and my energy, everything to do with me. And then I was asked to create another circle for my mother. And I created the circle right up against my circle, right? I felt really accomplished that they weren't overlapped. I thought that was progress. I was like, I felt really good about that. I was like, okay, I'll create this circle for me, this circle for my mom, and look, they're not overlapped. So I felt really proud of that. And then the facilitator asked, okay, is there a reason the circle is so close to your mother's? And I was taken aback a bit, and I said, well, I just want, I don't want her, what's the word? I don't want engulfment. Like, I don't want to feel smothered, but I also want to feel her love. Like, I want to feel loved, and I want her to feel my love. So, and she's like, okay, so go ahead and say that to your mother, right? Like, a part of the family constellation work is using representatives, right, in the work. So as soon as I acknowledged that, something in me shifted, right? There's so much healing and unburdening that can happen through acknowledgement, through loving witness, being heard, acknowledging these dynamics that are happening. I feel like this is a big part of the work that you've done already, and maybe more to come, but releasing and then I was able to move her circle further away, right? And still feel the love, still feel the connection, right? It's wild to think that it sounds like the logic of a child, right? A little bit better than a child, because a child would need their mother right there, right? Interesting. So perhaps this is part of the pattern that you're breaking down, that you've been addressing, and the progress is being celebrated and acknowledged here. That there's a huger threshold, a larger threshold and capacity for peace. And you can hold that and radiate it out, right? Allow it to radiate out. That's part of this. When you build the wall, you can't radiate out your gift. Part of your gift is embodying all this peace because you've done the work, and you can radiate that out. And people can stay, right? And working on the enmeshment is why it's important, because then you can radiate the peace out, and it's still not okay to come close to me to get my peace. You can stay there. I'll radiate it out to you, right? So just thinking about these energy dynamics, breaking down these subconscious these patterns, right? Breaking these patterns, but having gone through some of these highs and lows is the contrast that helps you understand peace more deeply. I hope there was some medicine in there for you. So thanks for liking the video, subscribing to the channel. Let me know in the comments. I also want to let you know that I'm starting to build a Patreon. What I plan to do there is have maybe at the lowest level, this is my plan for now, it might evolve, but I just want to share with you. My plan is to have like a whole archive of different crystals and messages. And so you'll have access to that archive at the lowest level, maybe a couple dollars donation monthly or whatever, where you could select a crystal for the day and get a message for the day. And then I'll be adding to that every week or two, right? And you'll get a crystal message for the day, and other ideas. If you have any ideas for me to build something that would be of value to you, let me know in the comments. I'd really appreciate that. I'm just working on, part of my work is also making this sustainable so that there's reciprocation in the process, right? So if you go over to Patreon now, I'm not sure what's going to be there right now, but as I said, it might shift and evolve. But if you just go check out Urban Empath, I'll link it in the description. Also, if you want a personal session or reading, or to donate to this channel, those links will be in the description too. I really appreciate you being here with me. Thanks for letting me tune in. I will see you in the next one. Let's tune in to our rough rhodochrosite. I'm seeing two partners. It looks like they're divine, divine partners, like an artwork or a depiction of what might look like two divine partners. And the imagery is they're very entwined. Fully connected. Almost like an alchemical process where they become one because they're so... you know, alchemical opposites come together and combine to create one unit. So that might be like a twin flame type of thing. I don't know that much about the twin flame journey, only because I'm not going through it myself, so I can't speak from experience. I don't believe I've incarnated with a twin flame. I'm seeing this, the yang part, so the masculine, is untangling, unwinding. And sort of going off and moving in his own direction. He's turned into a snake. So that might have meaning in that this might have been more of a lesson than, so perhaps you're coming through a situation where you're trying to make sense or peace of a past connection or entanglement, literally an entanglement that I was seeing, or encounter, right? And then what I'm seeing is this, the snake kind of slithers off, goes to do its own thing, and completely detached at this point. And then the missing part is now filled in with all white light, which is representing to me feminine essence. So then there's this whole person, you're a whole person, but it's all yin essence, and there's no familiarity with how to embody the masculine essence in yourself. And maybe this is the learning curve here. How do I take decided action, right? Maybe this is part of the gap where you so embody the feminine, you so embody feminine essence, this passive non-action, the state of intuition, this state of this intuitive function. That there's maybe this disconnect between what do I do with the knowing, right? There can be a disconnect with what do I do with the knowing. And I'm getting that maybe it's partly because there's a masculine energy or essence who's always taken care of it for you, or there was some kind of entrainment or conditioning where up until now it's not something that you've necessarily had to consider, make space for, you know, in your experience. And it's leaving a question here. There's a question of why. So it might be, why did this person leave? Or why did they come in to begin with? But But what's coming in is they were simply a temptation, a diversion, right? Part of you gave in to this distraction and this temptation because there was a shadow aspect of yourself that was not yet integrated. So it was an unfamiliar part of you that you were seeing projected outside, and it became enticing, right? I need more of that, right? And that creates this magnetism. Whoa, this person's really in touch with their shadow, and I'm not in touch with that part, right? Something to that effect. And it created a magnetism. This experience is not of waste. This experience, when integrated, can help you get more in touch with that, integrate that part of your shadow, and build more immunity around drawing that kind of person in, right? And not to say they're a bad person, they just weren't for you, right? Not to say that this was, right? Because when we talk about good and evil, it's such a, it's black and white thinking isn't generally helpful. So how can we use this for your growth, for your inner strength. And part of it is doing some of the shadow work. This archetype, the temptress, is the feminine archetype. What's coming in is Robert Greene has a book called The Art of Seduction, and he talks about these archetypes of seduction. And you know, if they remain unconscious, they might be like a beacon that we put out there, right? But if we arm ourselves with information, oftentimes it can create more of an immunity through our awareness. So we can see something coming a mile away when before it could be right in our face and we wouldn't understand the dynamic, right? We might feel the chemical high, right? The chemistry, and paint a picture, think that has one certain meaning, and really it could really be, you know, this element of toxicity that we have this sense where it's exciting. So what may have been enticing in the past, once we build this immunity by integrating more of the shadow and arming ourselves with this information, is it suddenly becomes a red flag. What once became enticing, appealing, I put this on my list, I need this chemistry, right? I put it on my list of things I want in a partner, pretty soon becomes, well, let me look at that. I'm going to slow down here. I'm not going to be so reactive and jump on this opportunity and situation. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to observe, right? Because while I might have this chemistry with this person in the past, that has not panned out. And there might be a reason for that. So I'm going to observe. I'm going to see and learn from this situation, allow it to unfold, collecting the clues. And when we can stay in the observer, we know you're not investing as much emotionally, right? Sometimes we get the message on both sides, whether you're a man or a woman, and no matter who you're attracted to, we often get the message that you've done something wrong, right? You should have done this to keep him interested. You need to work on your looks, or you need to work on leaning back more, or if you would have said this, it would have intrigued him and he wouldn't have left. So we often get the message that it's something to do with us and we're not enough. And we don't hear enough that it was just the wrong person. It just wasn't the right person. The only mistake was that you invested in the wrong person. So it's not like this whole rearrangement of your self-image and your approach and everything. Okay, now let me look at everything I say. I have to wait 5 hours before I respond to this. It was just the wrong person, right? So it doesn't have to be, it can be a lesson. We can learn from it. We can integrate more of the shadow from it and move on. But if there's something about this that you're holding on to because it's telling you something about yourself, it was the wrong person. That's all. It's simple. You know, the person wasn't giving signs that they were investing as much as you. They were simply the wrong person. It's not anything to do with you, your value, your worth, your, it was just probably based on a wound of, this makes sense that I'm not enough, right? Something to do with that. And, you know, we look at bonding, our ability to bond by relationship to mother, So there might be clues there about messages we were given in the family system about our worth and our value and our lovability. So this might keep coming back around until you really get and really understand that that person's bad behavior wasn't something you could correct or fix by being better or being more or being nicer or kinder or doing more. That needed to have a boundary around it and a consequence. That might be the missing piece here. Rhodochrosite can often be about romantic relationship. And that starts with relationship to self, right? There's, you know, pink or reddish and white in the stone. And that can often represent alchemical opposites, right? When we come in to relationship. We create this alchemy, right? I'm also seeing an image of, I mean, this could go on and on. I'm going to try to wrap it up in a minute, but I'm also seeing sort of like a court jester, a figure you might see in a Joker card or the Fool card. So what's being revealed to me about that is this person may have been younger or in a different phase of life, or have a less empathetic outlook. And so it's time for you to stand up for yourself, be on your side, and have this understanding and this wisdom from this experience that there wasn't something you could have done better or said differently. And if there were little moments that you can self-correct in your mind and say, going forward, this is not how I'll handle things, that's great. But overall, this wasn't about your worth. And the Fool is also about a new beginning, a fresh start, right? You don't need to carry all this blame. We don't need to play the blame game here. That guilt, that shame, is probably based on a wound from the past, has nothing to do with this current experience, but the intensity comes back, right? It replays. So what can you do to help yourself get out of that position? Turn off the narrative and tell yourself a story, another story, right? The brain works through narrative. Rewrite that story. You might want to journal it. Rewrite the story where you're the heroine, and how you would move forward in an empowered way. A love story that, you win. You win in the end. Yeah, you have a lot of power here. A lot more than you really understand. It's less about fixing the entire person, right? It's less about doing all this work to correct the entire beingness of you, and more about just shifting the lens. It can be so subtle just a subtle shift. You know, I'm seeing where at the eye doctor, they do a little click and all of a sudden everything's in focus. It's a small shift where one thought or belief about value or worth here, once it's shifted out and you can rewrite it, it changes the entire lens of how you're viewing things. And bad behavior becomes less about it's less magnetic and becomes a red flag, and there's a boundary that goes up and there's a consequence for it. All right, I hope this was helpful in some way. The information from the crystals and our connection is transitioning somehow, so I feel a shift in the way this was presented. So thanks for going on the journey with me. I do hope there was medicine in there. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That's really valuable to me. I'm starting to build over on Patreon. So I have this vision of, I want to let you in on the vision. I have a vision of, at the lowest level, because on Patreon they sort of have tiers. What I want to create is for the lowest level of subscription, a few dollars or whatever monthly, having different crystals that you can use for your own divination. So you'll get a message for the day, maybe, right? So you'll have all these crystals you can choose from and click on it and get a message for the day. I think that would be a really great idea. I have other ideas coming in as well. Probably all the videos on this channel will be over there too at some point. I'm trying to figure things out, make this work more sustainable for me so that I can keep going and keep delivering. So let me know if there's another type of intuitive work or anything else that you'd be interested in seeing here, or ideas for Patreon. I'd be very grateful to hear your point of view or ideas or feedback about what's already happening. So thank you so much for anyone who's doing that. If you want a personal session, reading, energy exchange donation for the channel, all those links will be in the description. I will see you in the next one. Bye, empath. Okay, so tuning into the Orthoceras fossil. Isn't that so cool? This is a fossil of, I think, an extinct marine animal. I think that's what Orthoceras is. Let's tune in and see. I'm feeling my body realigning here, right? As the fossil can produce structure, represent structure as a skeleton and, you know, really resonate with that earth element. I'm feeling I'm realigning here. I'm also sensing a gentler energy, more subtle, more sustainable. Longevity is the word that's coming in, which I do believe that's one reason you might work with a fossil like this. This was a gift to me by a man who eventually would become one of my Reiki masters. He took the role of teacher in my life when I was just getting into spiritual process and inquiry. We were out for work. We were out partying for work. He wasn't partying. He didn't drink. He was also vegan and really believed in the energies you put in your body, right? And to keep a clear channel. And he was very disciplined and structured with the way he taught and practiced Reiki and very accurate with language and all of that. He presented this to me and I had been drinking that night and partying. Like, I was young, you know, And so when he said he gave this to me as a gift, I sort of laughed because I was in that state. But he sort of slid this over to me. This whole story is coming back as I tune into this crystal, and I forgot about this. I don't even remember what he said to me, but it was me. He was sitting to my right, and then my spiritual sister, someone who I'm still she's probably one of the closest people in my life, emotionally and all of that. She was to my left when I received this crystal. That's so funny. Very interesting. Talk about structure, right? When we talk about like those pillars. And the clock reads 11:56. So that is two 11s, because 6 plus 5 equals 11. 11, 11. That might be a stretch, but looking at structure here, looking at alignment, longevity. Longevity keeps coming up. So there might be a question here about sustainability. If you're in the manifestation process, because when I see 1111, oftentimes I think that, there's something that wants to be birthed here. There's something that wants to be co-created here, right? 1111, two channels. Something wants to be co-created here. And, when I received this crystal, here I am sitting between two amazing spiritual teachers. One of the masculine approach, one of the feminine approach. Now, both were very dynamic people as well. That Reiki teacher, that Reiki master, and she was a Reiki master for me too. She introduced me to the system. She was my first healer. I just realized that. So here I am sitting between two pillars of Interesting. So one I sort of lost touch with in the physical world, but I'm tuning in, and he's pretty much saying that he's always there as a teacher. He had a huge impact in the way I learned Reiki. He helped me really dive deep into the first three symbols to really understand how to do spiritual inquiry, spiritual process. He also taught me that either everything has meaning or nothing. And in that time of working with him, I just had so much of an epiphany and understanding. I remember the first session we had together that was one-on-one, where I really dove deep into that first symbol, and was really working on developing an understanding and a connection to it in so many different ways, as far as symbols, right, that were stored in that symbol, and the hidden underlying meaning and history. I remember that first session, a ladybug was on my hand. We were in the studio, and I looked, and I was like, there's a ladybug in my hand. That time in my life was so magical. I'd be walking down the street with him, and I'd hear a song coming. I remember I was dating somebody who, I believe this is applying, that's why I'm sharing it. I believe this might apply to you. So it's not just me reminiscing. I believe this information might have meaning for you. So I'm going to go with it for now. I'll see what other information comes in as well. I was walking down the street with this Reiki master, and a song from this, I was dating somebody at the time. And the first person I was sort of seriously dating in the physical world, it was that time of life where I was, coming into my womanhood, coming into my own. And I had all these questions around this relationship and this person. And I remember I was walking past a store, and the music started, we could hear the music, and it was Paula Abdul, Cold Hearted Snake. And I was like, well, does that have meaning, or is that just a coincidence? And he was saying, what do you think? Does it have meaning? Either everything has meaning or nothing has meaning. And I just remember, while I don't think that person was a cold-hearted snake, I do think he did end up telling me lies. So that is a lyric to the song. He was telling me lies. So while I don't believe that person was a cold-hearted snake necessarily, I do think that it was probably good advice to get over him and move on. And that's what I ended up doing. So in that sense, you're being guided. There's guidance all around you. If we can just slow down enough to really see it, right? If you walk by and see a certain flower, you might look up and see the meaning, or a certain animal, right? Sometimes I'll look up dream symbols. Sometimes I'll look up omen, right? And just see what the meaning is that's already out there, and then see how it might apply to me. And if I can come into another, everything becomes a meditation for me. At this point, this is how I've learned to make life a study, a learning experience, right? To find structure where others might not see it, to see meaning in things that maybe others wouldn't. It helps inform my experience here and help me feel like I'm not alone, that there are co-creative forces around me that I'm connecting to, and that means I have purpose. There's a purpose for me being here, and I'm not of waste, right? That's something I had to heal. So as I tune in to the Orthoceras, so funny, there's like jellyfish, they're blue jellyfish looking things on my screensaver. And this is like marine, a fossil of marine life, right? Very ancient, extinct marine animal. I also sense descending energy. And if, that's beneficial. Anytime we get into a frazzled state, there is a slight point at the bottom here. So that termination can help move energy down. But what I'm sensing is this descending energy that's always beneficial for me, and probably most empaths who tend to want to float up and out of the body, right? Become disconnected. Our sustainability can be enhanced if we are just more embodied. If we can get in touch with that serenity, that gentleness, the wisdom of the eternal, right? There's this reverence, this wisdom of sustainability, longevity. When considering what action to make, right? And you can feel the energy shift. My speech pattern shifts. There's this reverence when you consider what's eternal. There's an aspect of you that's eternal, and you can tune into it. And when you do, that's the part of you that has medicine, that has wisdom, that knows how to heal, that knows the right choice. It's always there. It's guiding you. Sometimes we become blended with another part of us, but this is who we are, right? We are aligned to that part of us who's connected to the limitless, connected in internal family systems model of healing. We might call that self with a capital S. When we're self-led, we're more patient. We're more aware that things move through, things are just passing through, There are parts of ourselves that are really young, right? That are parts of ourselves that are in place to protect us from things we're afraid of. But the eternal part has more foresight, isn't so afraid, isn't so fearful, is more patient. And that part might nourish the body differently, knowing that this vessel is impermanent, but my essence isn't. And if I want to be here for a long enough time to master something, I might need a vehicle that's well fueled, well nourished, that will sustain me for a longer period of time, if that's my wish, right? Ancient wisdom is coming up. So I recently started looking back into my ancestral line, ancestral history, country of origin, right? Some of us don't know exactly what that is. We don't have the record of that, right? I know I had a family, an uncle, my mother's family is full-blooded Italian. Immigration was recent. So we have a better understanding of our origins, but on my father's side, there was DNA test, or not DNA, but I guess DNA for ancestral DNA testing to see, and there's German and Dutch. So I've been exploring those traditions because there's ancient wisdom that's traveling through our DNA, our blood, and it's evolved through us, right? Much like a game of telephone. But if we can connect back to our roots in that way, there might be something rich in that history that really speaks to us, particularly in the mysticism or a figure, right, in that country, or in the history of our people, right? There might be a figure that's spoken about still, and we might connect to that, and that can be a part of our spiritual mentors, right, on the spirit plane. We can connect into that essence. Much like we might find mentors on this plane that will inform our process, that we might mimic, that we might use as a template, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel for anything. We're just exploring something to make it our own. Right? Much like I learned how to read crystals from Krista Mitchell, my spiritual sister, who was sitting on the left side of me at the table when I received this crystal. She taught me how to do this. I'm just trying to make it my own. This is based on her teachings, right? She has a Pro Crystal Healer course. And she taught me to tune into the crystal, read the information, right? Read the properties that people have already experienced with these crystals that's written down, and then meditate with it and see what your relationship is to the crystal. And and then she also teaches crystal mediumship, which I would love to study more deeply with her. But this is sort of my intuitive work with it, right? And this is me practicing with you, right? So I'm practicing here in these readings, but I say that because our mentors, both living and on the other side in the spirit realm, can inform what we're doing here. If there's a question about purpose, or how do I do this, or we don't have to start from scratch. We can go where we're guided and follow our passion. What is it that lights us up? What would we like to explore more deeply? And as I was researching my family history in German mysticism, Hildegard von Bingen came up. as a figure. This Benedictine abbess who had incredible visions that were determined to be of God and not of Satan. I mean, that was a thing at that time. We all know where that led. But she was working with crystal energy. She was working with, this is a very disciplined, religious cloister, and she's having visions about working with crystals and the crystal energy and herbs for treating illness. Her teachings are still regarded today. There's a movie on Amazon Prime called Vision. It's in German with subtitles. And as I watched that, I felt so connected. She became one of my spirit guides, right? One of my mentors in the spirit world. When we're creating a business vortex, we're going to plug in these mentors. And their essence will become an archetype for us to start working with, to create our own unique offering, right? Our own unique experience, and that they will help inform our process. So, and I do that work with Shelley Poovey of Body Attune. She taught me that work. For some reason, Mentors is coming up with this. So I'm just sharing all these mentors. The Reiki master that I worked with, the masculine who gave me this, his name is Sky, Speaker. His middle name is Oak. So I could only remember. And when I first heard that, I thought he said oat, so I call him Sky Oat, but it's oak, like the tree. Sky Oak Speaker. He was my Reiki master, where we didn't work a long time, but we dove really deep, and that has a lasting impact too, right? There are people that you dive really deep with, and it changes your perspective of life. And then you have those people that walk with you along the way. They're invaluable as well. And mentors was really important for me this week. People that are able to see the best in me, see my potential, speak truths to me that affect me and influence me. And that might be coming up for you. If you're having a question or a doubt about where to go, a decision to make, a choice, maybe there's a big question about life, right? Find someone who's known you a long time, that you trust, that you see as a mentor, someone who's a little further down in the journey, and seek their advice, seek their wisdom, because they might tell you something that's really unexpected, but it might re-inspire you or illuminate the path a little further down, right? I hope that was helpful. Thank you for liking the video, subscribing to the channel. That's really valuable to me. Let me know if you got anything out of this. I really sense that these intuitive readings are shifting. There's a transition happening here. My business vortex is transitioning too. That mentor is Shelley Poovey of Body Attune, who's currently offering a huge discount for her Business Alchemy program. If you're interested, go to bodyattune.com, look at her Business Alchemy program. It's how I'm fleshing out my business. So it's really powerful work. She's offering a discount until July 31st of this year, 2020. So check that out. I'm saying that because it's coming in. I had no intention of plugging that. I don't have a deal with her or anything. I just wanted to let you know in case you were building a business and wanted to really be guided by it, right? Guided by the energy of the essence of what wants to come into the world through you. I also am building on Patreon. I want to build my vision for that is at the lowest level of monthly payment. I have a vision of having intuitive messages with the crystals, not long form, but just like a daily morning message where you have a whole panel of options of different crystals, not more than 3, right? All the crystals I can do. I'll be building on this slowly, adding videos every week or bi-weekly, where you'll have a crystal you can say, you know what, I want to tune into the message of this crystal today, and that'll all be archived there for you to do that every day if you want. A short message, maybe less than 10 minutes, and to get you into, have an awareness for the day or whatever. And you can use it for your own divination tool. I thought that would be really interesting. I have other ideas for other tiers. That would probably be the lowest level of just having this archive. I'm just trying to find ways to make this more sustainable for me, right? Doing this intuitive work. I've really appreciated the practice with you, right? And us tuning into each other. I'm just trying to find ways to have some sort of reciprocation. And this world, money is the only thing that we can spend. So just trying to find ways to sustain my business in that way. So I'm sending people over there to check that out. I'm not sure what will be over there right now, but that's something I'm looking forward to creating in the future for you as a resource. And if you have any other ideas about what you'd like to see from me, or what you'd be interested in video wise, whatever, I'm so open to your feedback. I really appreciate all that you've shared already. That's so meaningful to me. It helps me improve. It also helps me see and celebrate what I'm already doing to feel like it's having an impact. So I appreciate it. What you say really does impact me. So I appreciate that. And tuning into your beautiful energy every week with these readings is incredible. So I really want to honor and acknowledge you as the viewer. If you want a personal session, reading, to donate to the channel now, if you found value here, all those links will be in the description. I'm wishing you a really beautiful day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, empath.